today I'm talking about confidence as a copywriter. And I've trained over 10,000 copywriters. And what I know to be true is that confidence is a key factor in success, and it can determine if you will succeed or not. And it's also named as imposter syndrome. So there's a lot of ways in which the lack of confidence shows up, and it might be that we just don't feel that we're qualified, we don't feel we're good enough, we don't feel we've done the work, don't feel we've got the background. So there's all these reasons why we feel that we're not confident or competent as a copywriter, and some of them may be true. You know, the fact that we haven't done it, that we haven't written copy, that's all true, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. So, but what I see is people actually get stuck in that mindset of, I've never done it, I don't know how to do it, and therefore I can't do it, and therefore they don't even start. So there is a leap of faith that needs to be taken in order to go from not knowing to a little bit of knowing, and then you get a bit more confidence, and then you do another job and you get a bit more confidence, and so it goes. But I've seen students in my workshops who are maybe not the most fantastic writers, but really confident in themselves and their belief that they can do this. And they go out and they charge $250 an hour off the bat without any experience whatsoever, and go on to do extremely well because they just have that sense of belief about themselves. And other students they write like Shakespeare, amazing, but don't have the belief that they can do it, and therefore they never get over that imposter syndrome, so they don't actually succeed. So today I want to talk about, how can you deal with that imposter syndrome? You know, what do you need to do in order to get over it? And the first thing I'll say is that you don't actually ever eliminate it. You know, I'll be really honest and say that I still suffer from all those syndromes that I've just mentioned, both in my copywriting and in other things that I do. But I guess the difference is if you've already done it and you know that you can push through and find a way to make it work, then you have this deep, seated belief that it will be all right. Therefore, you should keep going. But I really want to emphasize, you just need to keep going and push through, and that will be the marker of your success. But when I started in advertising, I started as an account director. So I was more involved with strategy and budgets and, briefings and things like that. And I didn't really get involved with the copywriting. Yes, I'd brief the copywriters, but that would be the end of my involvement. And there was a very strong delineation between account service and the copywriting creative section. And it would be unthinkable in those days for that account service person to call themselves a copywriter, because the copywriters would be very, oh, I don't think so, you haven't joined the club. That was then. Things are different now. Everything's a little bit more fluid, which I think is fantastic. But in those days, one of my things I really wanted to do was become a copywriter, but I felt incredibly blocked because of that mentality in the industry that you are this and you shall never be that. It's one or the other. And I remember talking to a colleague of mine who had a small advertising agency, and his name was John Allen. Hello, John, wherever you are. Thank you for your inspiration, because it's still with me many, many years later. And I said to John, you've got your small agency, you write copy, you manage the client, you do the production, you do a bit of everything. And he said, yeah, why wouldn't I? I can do it. And I said, well, I'd like to be a copywriter, but I just, don't feel I'm qualified to be one. And he said, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. He said, did you write essays at uni and at school? I said, yes. He says, did you write reports at work? I said, yes. He said, have you corrected the copy that comes back from your copywriters? Yes. Have you written proposals, pictures and things like this? And I said, yes. He said, well, you're a copywriter. He said, no one's going to come and anoint you as a copywriter unless you give yourself that title. So he said, I now pronounce you a copywriter. And he kind of gave me this sort of, sword ceremony that you might do, be getting an AOM or something from the Queen. But it was a really important moment for me, because it was about belief. And in that moment, I thought, you know what? No one's going to call me out, I don't think, except those people in the creative section, if I go and say I'm a copywriter. So I started just to say it kind of casually amongst people who didn't really know me very well, just to see what the response was. And you know what? There was no response. They just went, oh, that's interesting. Or what is it? Or I want to hire you. So I discovered that the world wouldn't fall upon me if I called myself a copywriter. Not the same if you say I'm a police woman or a lawyer, or a surgeon, slightly different. But, no one's going to call you out for being a copywriter, because it's not even checkable. It's like, well, I write, therefore I'm a copywriter. And at the end of the day, you will be found out if the copy's not good. And I love that about the egalitarian nature of copywriting, that you can say what you like, but if the copy that you provide doesn't work or it's not good, then the client will be the arbiter of whether you are a copywriter or not. So first up, just know that no one anoints you as a writer, and that you actually have to give that sort of moniker to yourself. And then once you do that, you're still feeling an imposter syndrome. You're still feeling like you can't do it, but at least you can say what you are, so that when you do meet people, you've got the opportunity to build work. So a lot of students, for example, in my workshops, are actually copywriters without knowing it. And they've actually written copy and not even considered it copy. So I just want you to start expanding the brief of what copy really is. So for example, one of my students was working for an NDIS operation, and he was writing, flyers and brochures for his organization. And when we started talking, I said, what sort of copy have you written? He said, just stuff like brochures and flyers and a couple of newsletters and emailers. I went, you're a copywriter. So give yourself that title and own it, so that when people do ask, you can say that. So often we have written things, we don't consider it copy, but it really is. So just expand that brief of what copy really is, because if you've presented something verbally or in writing, in some respects, you are a copywriter. Because my belief is copywriting is about influence and about understanding your audience and then reframing your ideas to suit that particular audience. But it's about belief as well, because even if you are presented with an opportunity, if your belief is not strong, you will subconsciously resist that opportunity. And that shows up in really insidious little ways. And I'll talk about those in a minute. But let me just paint this picture for you. Let's imagine, for example, and the context of the story is that people want what you have. They really do. People really need copywriters, because they need their website to work. They need their emails to be opened. They need their videos to be looked at. They need their rankings to go up on Google. They need their blogs to be engaged with, their socials, etc. So businesses need it. This is not something we give that maybe not. No, people really need what we have. So first up, I really want you to believe that. Secondly, businesses don't really, I'm saying this in a general sense, okay, there's always exceptions, but in general, a small business owner that you meet for the first time who meets you as a copywriter and they've maybe never met one, they're not actually going, I've got another 5 on my list that I need to review. No, they're not. They're going, wow, where did you come from? Let's talk, right? Because they're not actually in the market to go and compare notes, because they don't know any others. And even if they looked at the website, they still would rather assess you on the relationship they have with you and the person that you present as, rather than some 3D, website over there that they've never met. So that sense of they're buying you, your personality, your I guess, rapport that you have with them, that's what they're buying. And the copywriting is a secondary consideration, because at that stage, they still don't know if you can do it or not. And even if you think you can't, you have to act as if you can. So that is a little bit of that leap of faith that I was talking about. So when clients do meet you, they're not actually trying to assess you compared to others. They just want something done. And that need is really, really high. So let me give you an example of how this self-sabotage that we have about our belief can really affect that. So let's imagine that you're in the desert, right? And you've got this water fountain and you own the water fountain. It's the only water fountain in the desert. And this man, let's say, is dragging along the sand, through the sand hills. He's dying of thirst. He's been without water for days. And he sees you, this oasis in the distance, and he crawls to you and says, oh, please, give me some water. I need that water. And you're saying, because you don't believe that your water, your copy is good enough, you say, you know what? I reckon there's some better water just down the track. I don't quite know where it is, but somewhere over there, there's someone who's got better water than me. I think you should just bypass me and go to them. And this dying man is going, I don't care where the water comes from. I just want the water. And you're saying, you know what? I think I'm not the right person for you. My water's just got a kind of different taste, or it's not quite what you want. Maybe it's got some more minerals in it that you really need. And the guy's, I don't care. I just want the water. And yet we're passing it on to other people just ignoring the offer because we don't believe that what we have is valuable. So sometimes clients just want what you have. And if you don't believe that you have it to give them, you will self-sabotage. Now, that's an obvious way in terms of, no, just please go and see someone else. But the other way that we self-sabotage are really, really insidious. And I tell you why I know them is because I've done it. Everything I say, I have done. So for example, they might say, hey, really enjoyed meeting you. Why don't you give me a call and we can talk further? And you don't call them, even though they have explicitly said, call me. Because you're still thinking, oh, they don't really want it. I'm not good enough. I don't want to put myself on the line. For whatever reason, you don't call. Or you do call and you have a nice conversation and they send me a quote. You don't send the quote. It happens. Or you send a quote and you undercharge because you're afraid that you won't get the job. Or you send the quote and you don't follow up on the quote. And that's a really a big sign that you don't believe in what you're doing. Because if you did believe, you would be saying, client, you need me. Your business will fail if you don't have good copy. I'm here to serve you, because if you don't have my services, your business will fail. You will be stressed. You will have financial issues. You'll close the business down. You'll have to sack your staff, take the kids out of school, cancel the holidays, cancel the car, and you will be stressed and have a whole bunch of other problems because your business has failed. So when you connect it to what you actually do for somebody, that's when this becomes really valuable. Rather than you selling yourself and saying, I've got copy and I want you to have it. It's saying, I know you have needs, and that if you don't have these needs met, your business could really, really suffer. So we are actually serving people. And when I change that frame set for myself about what I'm here to do, it changes everything. And suddenly I'm not selling myself. I'm just saying, I have a service that I think can be valuable to you. And so that self-sabotage shows up by not following up on the quote. And you might be thinking, well, they didn't really want it. I don't want to bug them. You know, if they really wanted it, they'd contact me. There's some truth to that. However, the reality is those people are busy. And often copy can fall to the bottom of the rung in terms of importance, or in urgency, I should say. It's still important, but it's not urgent. And they've got other things and other fish to fry. So until you remind them of how important it is, they can just go about their business. And because it's not urgent, it doesn't get addressed. And then if you do call, contact, email, they say, oh, that's right, I've been meaning to do that. And often they've got that resistance because they actually don't know how it works. And when they don't know how it works, they're more reluctant to engage with it because it just becomes more effort. So your job as a copywriter is to assist them in understanding how it does work and stepping them through the process so it becomes really clear. And the analogy there is, if you think about if you've had to hire an accountant or, God forbid, a lawyer, even a surgeon, and they're really complex situations that you've never encountered before, or an architect, you know that the ones that work for you are the ones who tell you how it's going to work. And they sit you down and they make you feel comfortable, they make you feel secure, they make you have hope that it's all going to be okay. And that's not about your ability as a writer. That's your ability as a communicator to share your knowledge, to share your wisdom, and to help them understand that you're in it together. And when someone says to me, like in those occupations, says, sit back, Bernadette, I'm going to take care of everything. The relief. You know, the relief, we sit there and you think, thank you. I will pay you more because of the way you are making me feel. So that's what we as copywriters need to be for our clients. They need to feel like they're in safe hands, that we can do it even if you can't, right? That's another issue, right? Just get the job, get the brief, and then you can work the rest out later. So when a client offers you an opportunity, there's all these self-sabotaging things that can go on. And it can be things like they'll say, you know what, I'm not going to go ahead now, but call me in 3 months. That'll be a better time for me. And you don't call them 3 months. So what you should do is just diarize it and then call them and then email them in 3 months and say, I'm back. You've asked me to call you and I'm calling you. So you're thinking, no, they don't want to be bothered. They didn't really mean it. They really do. Now, sometimes, yeah, they are fobbing. But even if they are fobbing, ring them back and then say, hey, you asked me to call you, and then let them fob you off again. But the reality is they do need it. They just didn't want it then, and they just couldn't be bothered dealing with it. But if you follow up at least twice, if they even have that 3 month mark, they say, you know, it's still not right, follow up in 3 months, and you do, they cannot say no. And I've been there and I've done that. And they go, oh, that's right. I'm ready now. You've been very patient. Let's kick on. So it's about having that long-term vision as well, about just following up and just knowing that what you've got is really, really, really valuable. So even if you don't have a website, it's not an excuse to not go out and do what you do, because of what that client won't even ask to see it. Now, if you go for an agency job, absolutely, they'll be looking for your portfolio. But don't let the fact you haven't got a portfolio or a website put you off, because as I said, they're assessing you in that moment, be it that phone call, that engagement, wherever you are, they're assessing you. And like I said, at some point, the copy will come through and they will then assess you. But that's a separate story. And we talk about craft on another session. So in short, I guess what I'm saying is that you have to go for it, even if you don't believe in yourself yet. And you have to suspend that need to have everything known and all your ducks in a row before you start work, because it's just a sense of, you got to work with the bumbling. And I'll talk about bumbling in another session. It's a topic very close to my heart, that as creatives, we are bumbling a lot of the time, but I will talk more about that. So embrace the fear, embrace the unknown, and just know that if you don't, and you pull back in that really important moment, you won't get to the gold. You won't get to where you want to go. And then chances are the next endeavor that you engage in, you'll have the same issues. We just take ourselves to the next problem. We don't really resolve it. So I just want you to dig deep and know that even if you feel like you're an imposter, the reality is you will always feel that way. You just have to manage that thought and just get on with it. And I'll show you more techniques in our Copy Club sessions on how you can get over that.